etc.? Okay, great.
Thank you. Okay, we are now streaming live on YouTube. To anybody who may be watching us on YouTube now, welcome. We're going to start the meeting here in just a few minutes. And for the rest of us, I am going to start a recording now.
John-Paul, are you able to confirm, like if somebody wanted to pull it up on YouTube, is there a specific channel or link, or do you search for?
The link went out in the public announcement that Parks sent out, or Dennis sent out, so that should be take folks right to the Salmonberry Trail YouTube account.
Great, thank you.
Hello, Lisa.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hi. Good to see faces.
I'm going to miss you guys.
Bill, you look really relaxed, actually.
Yeah.
Why?
It's younger.
Well, partly
He
because
does.
I had
He looks like
cataract
he's-
surgery. I got my eyes.
Oh, that has to feel really good.
Yeah, I went from
Congratulations.
extremely nearsighted to farsighted. It's quite an adjustment because I can't see anything up close anymore without glasses.
I feel your pain. Nice. Do we have everybody? Peter is not going to be able to join us. Peter got the opportunity to go actually tour up in the San Am after the fire, and he hasn't got to get up in there with his team yet. So he is going to be there today. So we're going to cover for him so he could go do that and be up there with the team.
And Jack is going to pop in later, so I'll sit in for him until he gets here.
Okay. Dennis, are we close to having a quorum?
Yeah, well, I was expecting Jennifer Purcell.
She's here.
Oh.
Oh, there
I'm
she
here.
is. And
there
I
she is.
just,
Okay.
and I may have to pop off video. My internet goes in and out. So if I do, it's not anything personal. It's just so I don't sound like a robot. And Jennifer probably can attest to that more than anyone for me.
And it
Right
looks
now
like
it looks
Jack
like it's-
just joined as well.
Oh, good.
Nice. There he is.
I'm off the hook.
Nice try, Michelle. I think he'll keep you on the hook though.
For half an hour, Michelle, and then I'll be off, and then I'll join at the end.
And Lisa, I also see my colleague Rehana Ansari has joined as well. I don't know if folks have had a chance to meet Rehana yet.
I see Rihanna in a whole different setting. Yay.
Yes, hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so I think everyone else is here. Hey, Mike, how are you? He's out in the
Good.
beautiful forest.
Hi, good morning.
Good.
Yeah, I think we're
Oh,
good to
there's
go.
Diami too. Okay, so I think why don't we go ahead and do real quick introductions just because Rihanna is with us. I'm gonna go off video because I'm getting that I'm unstable already. But why don't we go ahead? I'm Lisa Sumption. I am the Director of Oregon Parks and Recreation Department and the co-convener of the STIA. And Dennis, I'm gonna let you take it from here to introduce everybody for me.
Okay. I'm Dennis Wiley. I'm the Salmonberry Trail Project Manager working with Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. Jack?
I'm Jack Mulder, Port of Tillamook Bay Commissioner. Giles?
Jon-Paul?
Hello, good morning. Giles Rickett, Salmonberry Trail Foundation Board Chair.
Jon-Paul?
So call out the next person.
Jon-Paul Bowles.
Everyone's screen order is
Yeah, we
different.
have to listen to you, right, Dennis?
Yeah.
Jon-Paul Bowles, interim ED with the Salmonberry Trail Foundation.
Go ahead and pick somebody, John.
Oh yeah, great, Mike.
Good morning, Mike Caffaretta with the Oregon Department of Forestry. helping support the STIA when in Peter's absence today. Go ahead, Sean.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sean Morford. I'm the Executive Director of the Tillamook Forest Heritage Trust, and hi from Salem. And you, Michael.
Morning, everyone. It's Michael Langley from the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, recently reelected. Michael.
Yay!
Very good.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Pick somebody, Michael. How about Carolyn?
Michelle. I was going to go Michelle, but Carolyn's just a good choice too.
Good morning. Congratulations, Michael. Really appreciate your public service. I'm Carolyn McCormick, and I am with the Washington County Visitors Association. And Rihanna, welcome. It's the first time I've seen your face, but thank you for those Thursday morning meetings. Appreciate your leadership there.
Very welcome. Thank you.
I'll go next. I'm Michelle Bradley with the Port of Tillamook Bay, and I'm the general manager here, and I'll kick it to Jennifer Purcell.
Thank you, Michelle. Good morning. It is still morning. Jennifer Purcell. I am the Governor's Regional Solutions Coordinator in the North Coast, which includes Tillamook, Clatsop, and Columbia counties. And I will kick it to Commissioner Bartlein.
Hi, I'm Commissioner Bartlein. 2 more months as commissioner, and then I'm retired. So it's probably be my last official meeting for STIA as a county commissioner. But I may be the alternate to the county when we get done. I don't know yet. We'll see. So with that, I'll kick it off to, let me give it Jay.
Good morning, everyone. This is Jay Pudwell. I'm with the Department of Transportation, and I serve with Jennifer on the North Coast Regional Solutions team. I'm not sure who all...
Jerry.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. It's good to have everybody back on board again. Jerry Willie, Washington County Commissioner for District 4.
Sammy, you want to go next?
Sure, I'm Deami Valentine. I'm a senior transportation planner with Washington County and here to support Commissioner Willie.
Awesome. And I think, Rihanna, you're the only one left, right?
And Jolynn.
Oh, Jolynn. Yep, I see Jolynn up there too. She just moved on me.
Good morning, everyone. I am Jennifer Purcell's counterpart, the Governor's Metro Regional Solutions Coordinator for Clackamas, Multnomah, and Washington counties. Pleased to be here, and thank you for letting me participate in these meetings moving forward. Our team has made this project a priority project for the Valley segment of the plan, which is in Washington County. So thank you.
And Jolynn.
I'm Jolynn Becker. I'm the city manager for the city of Banks.
Awesome. Okay, I think that's everyone, right? Did we miss anybody? I think we're good.
No, that's good.
Okay. And so are there, to the first order of business, are there any adjustments to the agenda? And I'm not aware of any, but
one slight adjustment is that Giles is going to speak to the MOU before we dive into the STF business plan.
Okay. All right, then if that's the case, then why don't we go ahead and review the meeting notes from August and make sure that there isn't any changes or corrections there. Does everybody have those? It's so weird to not have 2 screens.
I know.
I don't see any changes there. Does anybody have anything? Good to go?
I'm not finding the meeting notes. I'm sure that I don't have any changes, but I'm just not finding that they came in email. So maybe Dennis can forward them at some point. That would be great.
I will do that.
Thanks, Dennis. Okay, and so then we're going to go into the strategic plan implementation conversation, and it sounds like we want to talk about the agreement first. Is that where we're?
Yes, thank you.
Jump out. Yeah. Okay. So why don't we just go ahead and take that one first, and then we'll play around with this conversation.
Sounds good. Giles, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Good morning, everybody. Apologies for ducking in and out and back in. Unexpected knock on my front door, so forgive me. Yeah, we're delighted to arrive at a place where we've got a confirmed and fully executed agreement between the STF and STIA. It effectively endorses STF as the official agent to conduct business, to develop funds, develop community, advance the message of the trail, and as far as making good on building the trail. So thanks to Lisa and to all the folks, including Dennis and others who got this together. And we take it as an excellent signpost that things are moving in a great direction. I think through a lot of change, a lot of difficult circumstances. It's exciting to be able to ink this and move forward. So just to review for anybody who's new to it, Salmonberry Trail was a project that was originally shepherded by the Tillamook Forest Heritage Trust and has transitioned across to the Salmonberry Trail Foundation, which was founded only about a year and a half ago. So yeah, thank you very much for that. And we're excited to drill down and get going and really, I think, formalize our plan and effectively join forces with the STIA to really make good on those promises that are contained in that MOU. So thanks to everybody there.
Great.
Well, and I'll just say thanks to you and your patience. I can't believe it's a year and a half. Just want to say that out loud. That's crazy to even think that out loud, actually. But
indeed,
thanks for your patience.
Yeah, and thanks for yours. I mean, it's testament, I think, to everyone's commitment and passion for the project that everyone surrounded this community to make sure that the transition was effective, and that you all care enough about the project that we were able to put this transition together as smoothly as we did. And I'm excited by how much has been accomplished in that short time. It's no small task, I think, to kind of repair the engine or change the engine mid-flight. So I think it's, again, great testament to this community. So thank you.
Yeah, we are far closer to where we wanted to be. So this is exciting.
This is Commissioner Bartline. This felt like it traveled at the speed of light compared to a lot of things we've done.
It's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we got to get this trail going because Commissioner Bartline's already retiring, and I really don't want to have to like push him on the trail. I want to walk or run the trail with him. So, okay. So Jon-Paul, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Sorry.
So when we last spoke and I was able to attend my first STIA meeting as the new interim ED, we talked about the priorities of the new organization and acknowledged the challenges of the current climate right now and addressed the need that we have to develop a business plan so that we're sustainable as an organization and concerned with building a trail rather than capacity funding and a lot of ongoing operational issues. So today I'm going to be talking through, along with Giles, where we're headed in terms of our business plan. You know, we'd love to get your guys' feedback and input on it. The overarching goal is for us to have a healthy, strong, sustaining organization with diverse income streams that are stable over time and that can avoid any vulnerability to fluctuations in any one of those particular funding streams. So we've spent a lot of time, I've been on for about 7.5, 8 months now, and we've spent a lot of time really thinking about our value proposition and asking our partners what STF can do that maybe they can't, or in other words, how we can really add value to our partners. Not just talking aspirationally about this trail at 86 miles and how wonderful it's going to be, but how we as an organization, a young organization, are good partners and do meaningful work in the meantime. So at this point, our priorities and what we're poised to deliver is trail on the ground, infrastructure proposals, and the coalition building that requires. We've started to do some of that work, which has demonstrated that there's quite a big role for relationship management and alignment with partners that aren't necessarily around the table here. Of course, with this group as well, but there are partners that are going to be integral to the segments that we're prioritizing, who we really need to create more alignment with, particularly around expectations of what the trail can and should look like, where it should be, cost, things like that. We are getting ready to launch a series of stewardship events, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. We see part of our role as growing public support and doing outreach and advocacy in a way that might not be possible for our government partners and our agency partners. We are ready to deliver some tangible connectivity. We've been talking about that a lot as a theme. So we're really focused on this connector between the Banks Vernonia State Trail and the Salmonberry alignment through Stub Stewart. We're finding a role within the trails community to help convene and create more collaboration. And we are taking seriously the DEI lessons that we're learning and taking meaningful action on implementing some of the recommendations that we've heard from those partners. So as I mentioned, we want our income streams to be diverse, and we need to be in constant contact with our partners so that we can ensure that we are articulating and delivering a strong return on investment that is mission aligned for us, but also beneficial to our partners. There are a few different funding streams that we are talking about then to have that diversity and articulate that value add uniquely. One of them is in proposal development and implementation. So this is capturing larger pots of public funding that will help us build the trail and infrastructure. I think it will be a case-by-case basis as to who the fiscal agent is, what admin costs look like on those types of proposals. But we certainly see that as an area we need to be active in, bringing significant funds in for the trail and that supporting the organizational capacity as well. We also hope that there's an ongoing role for us to deliver value to the agencies that are around the table here with STIA, as well as our county partners in Washington and Tillamook counties. And I appreciate the time that Commissioner Bartline and Willie have given me to help talk through what that can and should look like. I'd love to have more of that conversation with agency folks as well. And I've started it with Laura at ODF and Randy. Of course, have Mike as an ongoing touchstone for ODF, but really want to figure out more and more what it looks like for us to be a really good partner and add value in the short term. We will also be continuing to build our community, which so far has resulted in a decent amount of individual donations on a smaller end, as well as cultivating major potential donors, folks who are able to write more significant checks down the road. We'll also be looking into corporate partnerships and getting entrepreneurial and being willing to do fee-for-service work that is aligned with our mission. So in order for us to get out of the cycle of looking for short-term funding and then doing some work and circling back looking for short-term funding, we're proposing a backbone funding model, which is essentially finding 4, 5, 6 partners who would be willing to commit around $25,000 or $30,000 a year. STF is the first one at the table. We have done an internal raise with our board and with our existing social media followers and newsletter followers, and raised an initial $30,000 that we're putting on the table in looking for other partners to help with the startup funding. that will, if we are able to do the backbone model, it will allow us to diversify those income streams. I've just talked through some of the streams, that we're thinking about. I haven't represented fee for service in this chart, but that's something that could certainly add on. So what we're seeing here is that we've recently submitted the Murdoch Charitable Trust proposal for capacity funding. We think that this business plan here, this model, will allow us to grow and be successful whether or not we win that award. Should we win the award, this series of slides represents the blue in particular being the declining investment of Murdoch in our capacity, but our plans, which I think are quite reasonable, that we would continue to raise funds from our board, that we would grow individual contributions, particularly if we win the Murdoch Award and are able to hire a development director. We certainly hope to articulate enough value add and really nail that value add that we would have some ongoing funding from our government partners, be that at a county, municipal level. Again, we need to be capturing pretty significant grant funding to build this trail. So having some admin based off of the money we bring in there as part of the business plan. And then of course, growing some corporate partnerships as well. So my question to you all is, how can STF add value to your work? And hopefully, if and what that is worth. Would appreciate your feedback and input on where we're headed here.
Are there any thoughts, comments for Jon-Paul here? I'd love the reactions to the backbone funding. There has to be some.
Jon-Paul, as we look to develop initial projects, whatever those may be, and I know you're looking at Manning to Buxton and a connector through Stubbs Stewart up to the Banks Vernonia Trail. There may be opportunities on the coast. What other issues are there that need to be addressed? I mean, let's say that STF is successful in getting the funding to build the project. What else do we need to do to make those projects a reality?
We need an operations and maintenance agreement. That's one of the biggest barriers that we need to overcome sooner than later. We're in good shape with Tillamook County already, given the work that's been done there. And we are prioritizing, segments of trail with partners there. The challenge in Washington County is and again, with Tillamook County passing through municipalities or with the county, it's a bit easier to see who would be managing some of the smaller segments. Challenge in Washington County being that we need a partner or multiple partners to step up. So I certainly think it's time to have the conversation around operations and maintenance, if that is a single entity or multiple, and what it looks like. And also, what is STF's role in an ongoing way, serving as potentially a friends of type group. And then we also need to get through land use planning in Washington County. And that's going to let us do a good bit of work, be it clearing trail and just building some enthusiasm, allowing people to be on the trail and then saying, hey, listen, we're going to improve this experience as we go along. But here's what we're talking about in terms of the salmonberry and the experience it can be.
How do you think that O&M agreement and responsibilities of whoever the O&M partner is, how does that change? How is it different if we get out there with a volunteer developed rough trail, single track trail versus a paved Banks Vernonia type trail? Does the responsibility change significantly, or do we need to get the O&M agreement in place regardless?
Well, I'd be curious to hear others' thoughts on that. I want to be mindful that if we go out and clear trail now, even if we say it's not open, that folks probably are going to access it. And also, frankly, I want to be able to say that, hey, this stretch of trail is open. Go check it out, so that we can build some of that buzz and more public support. So, great question, Jack. I'm curious to hear others' thoughts on how much the scope of what the initial trail looks like might influence the O&M role over time.
Dennis and Mike, I'm gonna throw back to the two of you here, but I know in the earlier conversations we were having that dialogue about the operations and management going forward, and STIA creating what those conditions or what those requirements would look like, so we have consistency across, right? And it might be an underdeveloped or an overdeveloped or a medium developed trail, but I do think that STIA needs to have consistency around what those things look like, so that regardless of who's owning and managing and maintaining, because that may be different depending on the segment, that may be different depending on the partner. But I don't know that we have that all the way baked yet. And so Dennis and Mike, maybe you guys can help jog memories, at least mine, where we landed there.
That's my memory too, Lisa, that STIA does have a role there in setting up what those agreements look like. And it might be different for a phase one, you know, the first version, and things change as trails get more developed, but I do think that plan needs to be in place.
Yeah, and according to our lease agreement with the port, we've stated in the lease agreement that we wouldn't be doing any trail development until a trail operating agreement is in place. So we recognize as soon as we start clearing an area, regardless of whether we say it's open or not, people are going to be accessing it. As far as what those agreements would look like, it is somewhat essential to understand what kind of trail you're developing to really understand what is the amount of maintenance and operations we really would need in order to operate that successfully. And it would be a bit different from a simple cleared area that we're talking maybe some pedestrians could access, as opposed to a full-blown multi-use trail. There's, regardless of either, there are, depending on the section, culverts and things that will need to be maintained and looked at throughout the year. So really we'd have to look exactly how long of a section we're looking at, where is that section, to have an understanding of what would the maintenance and operations be needed in order to fully operate that trail.
And so do we have a committee currently working on that operations and maintenance agreement that could start getting us to those conditions and that criteria that we would want to see to meet those lease agreements and the standardizations for the trail?
We don't. There is no standing committee at this point for maintenance and operations. It was something we thought we'd be looking at kind of concurrently when we're going through land use approvals with some of the counties, because at that point you have a better understanding of what is the kind of trail that we're really looking at here.
Lisa, I think we were also hoping to give it the first fresh run when the creamery was looking at doing a trail around, and that was going to be kind of the work through model.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with nobody in the office, there's nobody to use a trail, so
right.
Dang it, Jack.
Just trying.
Okay. So I mean, and that's really what we need. That needs to be our responsibility. Back to you, Jon-Paul, is that we've got to get that agreement in place so that way you know how you're going to be operating when partners come in and are willing. And so I think as we get closer to a segment or a project, then I think that's when we need to get that kicked off, and we can put some framework around it, but it is going to be dependent on what those local land use conditions are and the type of trail and who's willing to take ownership, because I think we're going to have tough conversations there too of who's going to say, yeah, me, I'm going to own it and manage it and maintain it, and what exactly is expected of you when you do make that commitment. So I think we're getting close though to a project, right? So we should probably be thinking about what that committee is going to look like to be able to get the framework moving.
You know, we do have some of the legal framework sort of worked out with the model that we're using with the creamery, as well as kind of potentially looking forward to what would happen with the Rockaway. So we've had our lawyer look at it. So we've got at least the legal framework that then we need to fill in the details of what is actually being maintained and hours of operation, those kind of things. A lot of that will also happen with whoever the entity is that we're begin the negotiating with, it's, what are their plans for hours of operation and those kind of things, and their maintenance needs. So it's going to be a lot of things happening all at once to really pull that into a final agreement that could put some signatures on.
Okay, well, it sounds like if we can get one moving, we're ready to come around that and
Lisa,
set that up to make it happen.
I'd love to just go through a couple more slides that show what some of those opportunities are and will be in the near future, and then get some feedback on what it looks like as a business model and if we are on the right path, articulating the value that we can add to partners. So the priorities in Tillamook County that we're working on actively right now are the stretch from Rockaway to Nia County High and middle schools. And we've done a lot of vetting on that. We have a lot of information in the parametric study, but also Rockaway's done a lot of work on safe routes to school. This has come through conversations with Sarah Absher at the county. So a lot of the coalition building around this project as a priority has been done. And we've identified a funding source that we're working on now for that, which we can talk a little bit more about later. That specifically is the Community Pass program through ODOT. And this segment aligns particularly well with that criteria. Barview to Garibaldi is a priority, particularly for some of our coastal partners in that area, particularly ACFA and the Port of Garibaldi, and the folks running the Heritage Group in Garibaldi and the associated Tillamook Bay Heritage Trail. That obviously has some tremendous challenges to it. So it's certainly by no means low-hanging fruit, but we do hear consistently that it is a priority. Also just that, as you guys I'm sure know, the safety concern there bumps this up as well. And in the interim, as we develop proposals to get funding in to do some of this trail work, we are putting together a stewardship program along the Salmonberry River so that we are making meaningful contributions to the habitat and building relationships with the conservation and cold water fisheries community, which frankly has been one of the more vocal groups that has opposed the trail. So I think, us doing some invasive species removal, potentially, planting some native, making sure that when we do invite more people to access that area, that it won't have a negative impact on a really precious resource. For Washington County, we're being as opportunistic as we can in lieu of having that land use planning done and a lot of money in the bank. So we've identified a route to connect the Banks for Inonia State Trail with the Salmonberry alignment through Stubbs Stewart. And fortunately, since that's within a state park, it helps us skirt some of the land use planning issues with the county. We can tag into their existing trail plan and get a couple of mile segment built there, which will show how we can have a loop between the Banks for Inonia through Stubbs Stewart and Manning and the Salmonberry. It might not be the beautiful $10 million catalytic loop that is paved initially, but I think the idea here is let's go with what we have. Let's don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Let's get some trail on the ground, get people on it, and build enthusiasm, which will lead to additional funding. We are also prioritizing the stretch from Banks to Manning, which is existing BV. This is another opportunity for community pass funding that Diami and I will be speaking to a little bit later on. And this is all very well captured in the parametrics report as well. So the foundation is laid. We know that the BV needs to be widened and improved there, which is a little over a $600,000 proposition. We're pairing that with a lot expansion in Banks and then some rudimentary trail development for the Salmonberry paralleling as well. And this really dovetails with some works that Banks is doing on their traffic flow. And we also know that we need to complete land use planning. I mean, that land use planning and operations and maintenance agreement, management agreement are really two very big things for us. We have a lot of folks who are eager to be involved in stewardship. And we're looking at what it would cost to have, maybe a lower cost option for rough trail, again, just so we can get some folks out. And then in addition to those trail priorities, coordinating stewardship events. We have found a useful role in convening and coordinating. For example, on Wednesday, we hosted, along with Metro's Parks and Nature team, a forum focusing on signature trails in Washington County that was Councilor Juan Carlos helped facilitate, and Commissioner Willie and Scooten were there and speaking to the importance of this as well. So really trying to position ourselves as adding value to all those trails, because we are the connection from those urban and metro trails to the Tillamook State Forest and the coast. And then in terms of building public engagement, we are working on a short video series, which I had mentioned in our last meeting. We've done the shoot for that. It's in post-production now, so we're excited to get that out. I will be on the trail for a couple of days with Jim Ryan of the Oregonian, who does a video series called Peak Northwest. And we will be careful to not encourage people to get out on the trail. We're going to talk a bit about the behind the scenes mechanics of, how trails get built. And if anybody's thinking, well, why aren't there more trails? Give them a look into what it takes to get a trail going and what an opportunity like this does. So I'd mentioned that DEI is really important to us. We heard from a group of leaders, including the woman who's going to be, I think, replacing Commissioner Scooten, that representation is incredibly important. So we're lining up a photo shoot that will be able to help us promote the salmonberry and also show brown people outdoors. And then we have been more active on social media and growing our newsletter as well. And then this slide here is just an example of us being opportunistic and saying, all right, if we can't just go clear trail and let folks walk on it in Washington County yet, let's get on the ground. Let's create some volunteer opportunities and a little bit of buzz, and work on a little under 2 mile section here that again will connect the Banks Vernonia State Trail to the Salmonberry alignment. All of that to say, these are examples of us of us really sliding into that role of implementing the business plan that I articulated earlier and trying to really add tangible value to all of you as stakeholders and partners. So it would be, again, incredibly helpful for me to hear from you guys to get some feedback on how we get here, how we get to a healthy, sustainable, viable organization over time that can really get this done.
That's progress. We're moving, you guys. Are there thoughts there?
Lisa, I'm wondering if some of this discussion we will continue when we have our STIA budget discussion.
Our budget discussion, yeah.
Kind of tie into what Jon-Paul is looking for.
Yeah. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around government entities giving funding to a nonprofit. So we're going to have to really think about projects and funding projects, not foundation. So that is just food for thought. I don't know if anybody else is struggling with that same conversation, but that's, I'm like, this gets a bit trickier when all of a sudden it's a nonprofit relying on government.
But I'm glad you bring that up, Lee. Go ahead, Dennis.
I was just going to say, again, it'd be an agreement. It would be money passing from STIA to the foundation. How the money comes into STIA, I guess, is another discussion.
Yeah. And so I think, Jon-Paul, we probably should put all of that into that budget conversation, because I think we're at this transitional moment of, so previously how we were funding STIA was ODF, OPRD, Tillamook County, Washington County Visitors Association. We're putting funds forward to fund Dennis's position and then pay for some of those administrative incidentals, our insurance, our legal, those pieces. And I think we're at that pivotal point now that I think Washington County Visitors Association is now funding more towards your side of the house, and the rest of us are going to have to start thinking about what does that look like for all of us. Are we going to continue to fund STIA and then STIA funds you, and what does that exactly look like? Because previously that was more around Dennis's position and the project manager and getting the trail prepared and ready. And now that we're getting into actual execution, I think we'll have a very robust conversation there around budget, which will help you, I think, start planning a little bit differently. And so I'm open. We can either do that dialogue now or we can wait till we get there on the agenda. Carolyn, you unmuted.
Yeah, I unmuted because my eyes go immediately to the Murdoch Foundation. So what a little bit more of an update on where you all stand with that. Have you actually officially applied? And what is the process moving forward?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Carolyn. We have applied. We've submitted that proposal. It calls for the creation of a communications and development director. I think that the numbers that we projected on private fundraising are actually pretty conservative if we're able to have somebody in that role. And then it also budgets for planning and construction position. So accounting for Dennis's work and the need for that role over time. It's a declining investment from Murdoch that would start at 180 and whittle down to, I think, 59,000 by the end of 3 years. But again, the point of those bar graphs being how we as an organization will look to increase revenue from other sources using backbone funding and hopefully Murdoch investment as essentially startup funding in becoming more financially sustainable organization.
So did you cover timeline? Oh, thank you, Mike. Yeah, timeline.
Timeline. Yeah, they don't have particularly tight parameters on when we'll hear back from them. I think it will probably be early Q1 of 2021. Also, I think we need to have a business plan that is resilient enough to where we can expedite our growth if we receive the Murdoch funding, but not dependent on it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jon-Paul. That has been the challenge over the last decade that I've been involved is figuring that out. I think the on the ground stuff you've got in the works is going to help us a lot, and people appreciate seeing that kind of movement. But that has been our challenge.
So
yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just trying to. I think most of us are trying to wrap our head around if that doesn't come, then how do we support until that is there, and just trying to plan appropriately for that, as all of us are in places that our budgets are declining and hit pretty hard based upon some of the COVID impacts and financial impacts there. So just I think that's probably where most folks are, is trying to figure out what exactly that looks like from a timeline perspective, and how do we make it agile enough that if that money comes in, there's some different level of commitment. So, and Jon-Paul, were you gonna?
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that I realize this is a terrible time to be going around asking for seed funding. I think our entire organization does, but also that we are trying to make a very intentional pivot away from coming up hat in hand and saying, hey, this trail is going to be really cool, fund us and we'll figure it out, to here are ways that our organization is uniquely positioned to contribute to your county, your agency, your organization. And for a somewhat minimal investment, we can help deliver on things that are important to you. So as budgets are tightening, is there some work that has to be outsourced? Is there, for example, with Washington County having to put, and Tillamook counties having to put a regional trails position, a new headcount that was planned, on hold? Well, how can STF step into that role and help with some of that coordination, which would actually be at quite a bit lower cost than it would have been to hire that coordinating position?
Yeah, and also recognizing even if we are in a tough crisis financially right now, it is still the right time and opportunity to continue to make forward progression here. So it's sort of have to be a little bit more creative than we intended.
Yeah, and I think perhaps as before, we really have put the emphasis on a portfolio of opportunities rather than putting all our eggs in that one basket of Murdoch. So Murdoch is one of the funding streams that we're excited about, but there are indeed many others. And it's a matter of diversifying that set of opportunities, working them with a sense of priority, and certainly all tempered with a sensitivity toward our current economic situation, public health situation, and shifting sort of funding possibilities. So really the shift toward pursuing projects that we see having legs for specific communities, utilizing specific federal programs in some cases, specific state programs. That's really, I think, where we see the most excitement, the most opportunity is helping our partners really suss those out and give those a sense of priority. And we show up as a partner who is capable to help lever those funds and make some of those turn into real projects. So maybe I'm just restating what Jon-Paul said earlier about a pivot, where we've had a lot of legacy partners who I think assembled on this call who have been outstanding supporters of the effort, but we see a very deliberate and needed shift in the way we are describing our value and pointing toward the specific opportunities that exist out there. So again, broader portfolio and placing money on a variety of bets rather than just on a single thing.
Yeah, no, totally get it. I think we're all in the same space and all in agreement. We're just going to have to get creative on how we support you to support us and the vision that we've had sitting out here for probably more than a decade now.
Absolutely, creativity is key here.
Exactly. Okay, so we'll get more into this after, especially after you guys do the project proposal and then the budget. I think we're going to keep having this reoccurring conversation, so it'll give us time to kind of process a little bit here as we progress forward. So I think Sean was going to take us through the we started out with the Salmonberry, with the Tillamook Heritage Trust was the one who carried us for years, and I think we went through several different executive directors, and Sean came in and helped transition everything over. And I think we're to the place that we feel good that we have this 1.5-year-old ready to kind of stand up on its own and start walking and running. And Sean, do you want to take us through this next piece around the?
Sure. Well, this agenda item, thanks, Lisa, it just came up out of conversations as the MOU looked like it was coming to completion. And given the fact that I meet every week with Jon-Paul to compare notes and pass ideas across the board, and we are collaborating on a year-end appeal. So we're still woven in. The trust is still woven in, but it just seemed like a good time to transition off as a member of STIA, as a decision maker on STIA. So I guess, I don't know the process exactly here. This is just a proposition from me to everyone else to say, maybe this is a good time to leave as a voting member and remain as a partner of STIA like many other good partners. So it just was put on here as an agenda item to presuppose or propose, I guess, that this position be taken off STIA as a voting member now.
And I'm okay with that, but I think we do need to just take a moment and thank you and the foundation for everything that they've done over the years to keep us moving. And without that arm, to be able to have the flexibility and the agility of having a nonprofit to be able to hold us up where we couldn't do grants and we couldn't do things that we can't do as government entities has been invaluable. And we wouldn't be at this place without the support from forestry and the forest trust. So I personally want to say thank you. And Sean, you came into it when we were in a weird transition and you just rode along with us like you'd been there the whole time. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, we are not going anywhere. I mean, if you don't see my face in these meetings, that doesn't mean we're not working behind the scenes, particularly with Jon-Paul. So
Exactly.
Really
So are there any, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to say I've really appreciated Sean's time. She and I do meet weekly, and just having her, perspective and support's been really helpful. And she's a very fun person to work with. So thanks, Sean, for that connection. And I'm really glad that we have that recurring meeting still on the calendar. So the relationship maintains.
So the trust is doing a pretty comprehensive year-end fundraising appeal now that we have our little green light database in place. It's easy to do. We inherited many of the early Salmonberry donors into our database. So as a good partner, we are, I've offered to Jon-Paul, if there was interest in having an insert go in our envelope. We're doing about 500 mailings by snail mail. If he wanted to put an insert on Salmonberry, especially letting donors know that there's been this transition, and if they wanted to continue donating to the Salmonberry, that they could find a Salmonberry project now. And if you let me share my screen again, I will show you what Jen just sent us very briefly. Jon-Paul.
I think you should have.
Okay, I have the authority there, right there. Isn't that pretty?
Nice.
So, yeah, so that's we're having a fourfold brochure for the trust, but this will go in as an insert in that. So hopefully that will provide some attention on a year end.
Yeah, that's beautiful. They did a great job.
Yeah, Jen Warren is our graphics guru. Thank
Nice.
you. Let me show that. That's
awesome.
Press.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. Are there any objections, thumbs up, thumbs down, if the Tillamook Heritage Trust goes off as a voting member?
Sean, this is the first I've heard of that. Maybe you could just tell us sort of some of the reasons why. I think when the Heritage Trust first stepped up to help the project, it was because of that such a close nexus between our state forest programs and our state forest in general and the Salmonberry Trail. And so I think that link is super important. And maybe why would us back out?
Yeah, so I think because my feeling is that there's other good ways that are more tactical than strategic, and that I think that now that the MOU is in place, that the foundation really has that role now. Trust can be a strong partner in many other ways, but not at the strategic level that it has been. That was the conversation that item. So it hasn't been vetted. I mean, I haven't even talked to you, Mike, about it, but it ended up something we wanted to discuss today. So,
is there a chance we could put it on hold for the day? We could all think about it, and maybe our agency and the Heritage Trust could, and Salmonberry Stia could talk it over a little bit more and sort of think about that a little bit.
I don't know why not. Yeah.
This is Carolyn over here. Mike, good to see you. I haven't seen you in so long. Mike asked the exact question, and he made the same statement that I would have made, and that is, this is news to me. I think Tillamook Forest and the trust itself was a really big part of this in the beginning, really the impetus as to where we are today. And I don't see, I'm not seeing myself very clear through the forest on this one. I hate to see a step down for the future of this project. And I'd like us to have a little bit more time to kind of think this through, to accept it. It is, of course, your wishes and your board's wishes to want to step down, evidently, but it's
so let me pose it as a question then, maybe for us all to think about. And so what would be the continuing role of the trust on STIA? So it's just clarity around that might be helpful, and then our board can think through that too.
Yeah, because I think some of the logic and the reasoning in there is that it was our functioning nonprofit, as well as that connection to the Tillamook Forest. But between Mike and Peter, they can provide that connection to the Tillamook Forest. No different than the Banks Vernonia. I mean, we don't have the friends group of the Banks Vernonia sitting here as a voting. You know what I mean? So it was more of that logic of what was the role here. And I mean, we would love to have Sean still at the table. I just don't know if it's the strategic nonprofit partner that we had intended from the beginning, because we've created this other partner. So I think it was more Sean saying it's time for me to exit out and Jon-Paul to come forward, and that's the role now. They're ready to stand up there. But there's still absolute value of them being there, but there's value of lots of other folks coming in and that similar type of capacity. And so it just seemed like a natural time to transition. But we can certainly pose it to the next meeting. It doesn't have to be today.
I think the expertise that you provided, Sean, when you brought on Jon-Paul and he's still new and the organization is still really fledgling, certainly really appreciated your leadership and input, and really want to keep that close to the project. And maybe it doesn't
question
on STIA, but it is nice to have it on STIA. That way we know we have it and can track it.
Yeah, I think that was kind of Sean's point. She was already doing all those things, and she didn't really need to be here either, because Jon-Paul now has that. But
yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that we've put it out on the table for us to think about. I don't think I came in with a really strong, this has to happen. Our board hasn't discussed it, made a decision on it, but I kind of wanted to just get some sense of it. So thank you for that.
Okay, are there other thoughts on that you want to share now, or?
No, that's good.
Do you want to give Sean that?
I'm glad
now,
we have
or?
it as I'm glad we had it as an agenda item.
Yes. And so it sounds like we want to bring it back as an agenda item next time to say yes or no. Yes?
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay. All right. Then let's go ahead and then move on to Jon-Paul and let's see. Jon-Paul and Diami. Yeah.
Yep.
If you guys want to take the Banks Trailhead expansion conversation and excite us a little bit here.
Okay, that sounds good. So we've been talking about how to be entrepreneurial and add value. So this is an example of one of the ways that we're trying to do that. And as I mentioned in the last TIA meeting, I really appreciate, a lot of folks helping me get up to speed and lending particular technical expertise. And Diami's been really helpful in that. So the model here that we're looking at, which is one of the inputs for our business plan, bringing in public funding and hopefully, having funding to administer that, is a prioritization exercise where we break down the segments as they are in the parametrics document, prioritize them along with partners, and then look at the funding criteria of a specific opportunity, the one we're discussing today being community pass through ODOT. And then from there have a whole lot of conversations with a lot of folks that'll be implicated. In this particular project, it's largely Jolynn with the City of Banks. So thank you for being here, Jolynn. Diami, of course, with the county, and then STF coming in and playing a role as well. And then defining what the contributions of each of those partners is in developing the project. So, in this case, banks working on some road realignment that's going to complement this trail system really well, that we could count as match. STF's role in rolling up our sleeves and doing grunt work to pull a proposal together, reaching out to Rihanna and our ODOT partners and others to make sure that we really have a strategic approach. And then getting down to developing the proposal, which what I'm learning so far, not in this case with Washington County on this project, but in general, is that there's certainly work to do. There's a bit of friction there. So we got to create that consensus with whoever the consortium is on a given project, get technical inputs together, and do the grunt work. So again, this is just kind of zooming in on one of the income streams and ways that we want to add value as an organization. And I will hand it over to Diami if that works for you to talk a little bit more about this specific opportunity and what it looks like.
Sure. So do you want me to speak specifically about the Community Paths program or the project proposal?
The project proposal.
Okay. Well, I think the Yeah, we can speak to either one of these slides. So the idea was born out of, I mean, the city of Banks has a project that is currently funded to revisit the intersection on the top left-hand side of this image. And so in that process, they were looking at a couple concepts, and the Valley Segment Plan took those different concepts into consideration and looked at opportunity to align that intersection improvement potentially with an expansion of the Banks Vernonia trailhead, and a trailhead that could benefit the Sambury Trail as well. And so the work is being done now to do some design work. It sounds like they are moving. There were 3 different concepts, signalize, and then a couple different roundabout options. And it sounds like they are moving towards a signalized option. So that's what this reflects. So a potential redesign or design for parking lot expansion. And with that funding commitment to improve that intersection, the county is able to do some kind of advancing the design potentially for the parking lot. So that's in the works currently. And then leveraging on that, with the Community Paths funding program, we looked at, how that work can leverage this funding opportunity by we acknowledged in the Valley Segment Plan there were a couple alternatives for improving the segment between Banks and Manning, and one of the options is widening the Banks Vernonia Trail, because there is some. It's a narrow path, and it is certainly at capacity, essentially many days of the week, and so the proposal would be to widen that segment between Banks and Manning to accommodate the additional traffic demand, and then from Manning west, looking at some type of a soft surface improvement, most likely, that would align with the work that Jon-Paul was talking about in terms of connecting Stubbs Stewart State Park and the Banks or the Sambury Trail alignment. So in all, it is it's an ambitious project. The available funding through the Community Paths program is about the maximum of $4 million. There's an opportunity to leverage some county funding to serve as match for that program. And, I know Jon-Paul and others and the county have been in conversation with Metro about the local or the Parks and Nature bond funding as another opportunity to leverage. And so trying to cobble together some various funding sources to potentially implement this project, but the Community Paths program would go a long way there potentially.
Great, thanks, Tiami. And I'm optimistic about this as a particular project. I think in the context of an STF business model conversation, looking at the mechanics of bringing in public funding and our role in it is really, I think, as significant for me in these early projects as the projects themselves. So I appreciate folks' input on and thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, and we see a clear, I mean, I could speak to that real quickly, but I think there's a clear role that we see for STF in, advancing, there's going to be multiple phases of this project, right? There'll be contract management, overseeing design work and as well as construction and the land use planning component of it as well. And so there's kind of three, administrative project management potential roles that I envision that STF could potentially play and serve.
Thank you. Appreciate that add-on.
That looks good, you guys. Let me just see if I heard that right. It's along with the intersection there in Banks, making that into a signalized intersection, looking at the parking there, the Banks Vernonia, improving the Banks Vernonia Trail to Manning, and then potentially taking the San Bray rail line and making it a soft surface trail up to Stubbs Stewart, if we could pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that would stretch the budget pretty thin on this. We'd probably have to have a conversation around how we, augment the funding. I think this program has less than it maybe had anticipated this year. But yeah, that it would also, and I'd add to that, Mike, we would also get a line item in for land use planning in Washington County, which would remove a huge barrier for STF.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, that would be great. If we could, I think that would be a huge help for the project.
And this is Jolene with the City of Banks. I know right now we're working with the county with the funding for the design of the parking. So that I'll know more information in the next month if that funding comes through.
It's pretty exciting, you guys.
So
excuse me, Jolene, does this align with where Banks wants to go, in your broader Banks planning work?
Yeah, it does, because with the intersection project, we may be losing some parking. Like right now they're using the overflow parking, so they're looking at that as trying to keep it there. But looking at the concept plan, that may go away, so there will be less parking right there at that at the trailhead.
Okay.
But yeah, adding more parking. From what we see, that comes in on weekend and when the weather's good, especially now during COVID, there's a lot of people coming into town. And so you see a lot of parking on Highway 47, Cedar Canyon, down Main Street, which is fine. And then that overflow parking can be really packed.
22,000 riders on the BV in July this year.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So, just to spin the record one more time, I mean, again, this is an example of us as an organization trying to say, hey, this is a unique value proposition. This is somewhere we can step in and hopefully add value and put it to the county. Is that role worth the potential increase in public funding that would be brought into the county for a priority project?
Right.
And I'll add on a final note that there are two project concepts being explored on the coast. The most aligned is certainly the Rockaway to Neocani High and middle schools. And I think it was affirming for me when I called the county and talked with Sarah. She was excited about the community pass opportunity, thought that stretch was the right spot, and mentioned that the county just didn't have capacity to lead proposal development. So for me to be empowered by my board to step in and say, that's a role we'll play, hopefully, again, really clearly articulates how we can play a needed role and bring in a lot more resources than we're asking for.
So Jon-Paul, what do you need from us today?
A commitment of several $1,000s from each organization over multiple. I need Lisa. Thank you for asking. I need feedback on this proposed business model. Is this the right direction? I mean, I'm trying to show you guys that we're willing to hustle, basically, and that we understand that a healthy organization has multiple income streams, and it's not just hey, can you fund us indefinitely, and we'll figure this thing out. So one, feedback on the model. Are we on the right path here? Two, either consideration that your agency or entity might be a backbone funder, or three, your support in helping advocate other organizations that have funding to become a backbone funder, so that it's not just me and Giles, us as an organization going out, but STIA behind us or in front of us, helping to land this model.
Okay, so with that, what are thoughts from STIA members? I know it's hard to throw in a financial commitment, but let's start with, are they on the right path or the right trail, the right segment?
This is Carolyn here, and as you all know, the WCVA has been a very, very big, strong supporter and funder over the course of many years now. So I guess what I'm just need to get clear, and of course, at this moment in time, I can't say that the WCVA can continue to provide ongoing support. It'll have to be a discussion with our board. And of course, transient lodging tax revenues have taken an absolute plunge off one of those trestles. And the funding that we've seen in the past is certainly not the kind of funding we're going to see down the road. And it's going to take several years for us to recover, for sure. So there's a couple things that I'd like to see so I can bring this to my board for some discussion. First off, I think most of us around the table have been providing $3,000 a year to underwrite the basic needs of STIA. Is that correct, Dennis? We're still doing all that?
Yes, as of 2019. 2020, there were no contributions. We were continuing to kind of nurse what we had in the bank.
Okay.
And we are close to exhausting that.
Okay.
That was for things like insurance. That wasn't staff time. I don't think.
Right. That's
that
correct.
Was insurance, legal. Yeah.
Again, that basic ongoing needs. So not quite sure where we are on that, because I'm not sure where we are with funding us moving forward. That is STIA.
Yeah, so that is one of the next agenda items to talk through, because
that is on the next. Okay.
Yeah, we're about to run out of money here soon.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm sorry I didn't look ahead on the agenda. So I've got that one question. We'll cover that, and then I guess I'm just trying to get a little bit clearer, Jon-Paul. And thanks for all your great work. If you can just send something along in writing that shows what you're looking at as a contribution. I don't know if you showed actual dollar amounts that you were looking for.
Oh, in that pie chart, we had 30,000 in each of those, and that math is, we talked about 25 to 30 initially. We were able to raise 30 internally, so we want to come to the table and say, here's our piece of the pie. We really believe in this, and we're willing to commit to that type of fundraising from our board and organization over the next few years.
So what you're recommending, what your board is recommending, is $30,000 per entity that serves on STIA?
Not necessarily per entity that serves on STIA. I think the broader point is, if we have 4 or 5 other agencies, organizations that come alongside us as backbone funders, then we can get to that bar graph that grows and diversifies our revenue. If Murdoch is a part of that formula, then I think that we'll have a great booster shot. But even if not, if we have backbone funding for a few years, then we can create a viable organization.
Okay, so just get me anything that's a little bit more black and white so I can share with my board, so I can explain what the requirement is or what the request is in order to get the ongoing funding. So thank you.
So I think in the spirit of time, Jon-Paul, I think you guys are on the right path. I think we as a board need to have a larger conversation around budget and where we are financially and what our stability looks like in order to be able to give you that assurance that you're looking for, because I don't think we have that confidence right now as a team of where we are. So let's pause on that for a minute and then have Jennifer and Dennis do the planning piece. and then get us into that budget dialogue, and maybe we can resolve some of that in that conversation.
Sounds good.
Does that work? Okay. Thanks, Dennis. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Jon-Paul. It's super exciting, so I don't want to diminish. I mean, this is a great opportunity, and I also don't want to miss it, but I want to make sure that we all know where we are and that we're okay before we give you marching orders or depress you.
Understood.
Okay, in the spirit of time, I'll try to be brief on the plan update. So since the last meeting, the team presented the base conditions report on both the river segment and this canyon segment to the Plan Review Committee. We've also conducted additional field work in the canyon and brought in Trail Keepers of Oregon as a consultant to help us evaluate potential bypass alternatives where the infrastructure is so damaged we wouldn't be able to utilize the existing rail line for the trail. They then finalized trail alternatives for the river segment, and we presented that to the Plan Review Committee. The highlights of that was that the idea of a rail to trail proposal for the Nehalem segment is very straightforward. There's only one smaller issue where there's going to have to be a new bridge. Other than that, the rest of the bridges were quite capable of transitioning into pedestrian bridges. When we go to the idea of a rail with trail, and remember at our last meeting I discussed, we actually went to a rail with reduced width trail because of the geography of that landscape. And we found that that's not quite as straightforward. The main challenge is that there's still a number of pinch points where the trail would have to either go out onto Foss Road or somehow cohabitate where the rail infrastructure is currently sitting. They are now finalizing the canyon trail alternatives, and we're presenting that to the committee on November 19th. And I'll give you just a couple of preview highlights. One of the more exciting aspects is part of our contract, we had looked at parametrics, wanted to re-examine the west side of the valley plan because there were a number of questions that we had open. We weren't sure where the transition should take place from the valley to the canyon. And what they've been able to determine is that whatever is decided for the valley trail treatment, you could actually bring that trail treatment in 3 miles into the canyon. So if you know where Cochrane Pond is, 3 miles past Cochrane Pond gets you to the Wolf Creek Trestle, which is a stunning overlook deep into the canyon. So that would be like 28 miles of multi-use trail starting in Banks that would get you deep into the Tillamook State Forest, which is kind of an exciting idea. From that point at Wolf Creek Trestle, the damages are very, very severe. And that's when we will transition into what the concept plan had called an adventure trail. It would look more like a hiking trail with potential to be able to get a mountain bike through there. However, there will be some areas where right now we're looking at potentially there'd be steps to be able to get you out of the steep canyon, to be able to get up and around places like collapsed tunnels or failed trestles that, like the Wolf Creek itself is a failed trestle that couldn't be rebuilt. And then from there, it's about a 12-mile trail then to get you down to the confluence where you could once again pick up something like a multi-use, fairly accessible trail segment. So the real exciting news is that you can have a connected trail through the canyon, which we did not know if that was going to be feasible or not. So that was very exciting. In December, we're then going to dig into, well, what's this thing going to cost? We'll start looking at those cost estimates, which will also help us further kind of refine some of those alternatives as we look at the costs. And then we're also start looking at how do you phase an implementation strategy for this section. So that'll happen in December. In January, we should be able to have, then depending on what comes out of those meetings, pretty close to a draft final plan. And we would be planning to schedule a presentation to STIA at their February meeting. And then one item I thought I should note, since we're also talking budget, is when we initially put together the contract with Parametrics, I held back $30,000 as a contingency because we found with the Valley plan, we ran into some things where we actually needed to do some more planning work around trailheads and providing schematic design. So at this point in time, I'm not anticipating that we're going to run into something where we're going to need that. So there is potential that at the end of the planning project, there would be $30,000 still in the budget from the plan that is sitting with STF at this point. So it's something that we should have discussions with Tillamook County and Washington County about, what's the future of those funds. Something to consider. With that, I'll take any questions anyone might have about where we're at with the planning process. And then at this point, then I'll turn it over to Mike and Jennifer to just talk a little bit about how the plan review committee is working out. So questions, comments? It's exciting. I mean, the idea that there really can be a trail through the Tillamook State Forest. So it's a big deal.
Trail all the way through is a really big deal. Yeah. So that's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
Really expensive, but really awesome.
Could be expensive, and certainly aspects will be expensive. The idea that you can get a fully accessible, meet people with all their needs all the way into the canyon is pretty dramatic.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to Mike and Jennifer to any comments they'd like to make about the plan review committee.
I think, Bill, were you trying to hop in?
Yeah, I was. Dennis, we allocated a certain amount there too for your salary.
Correct.
Tillamook County doesn't, I don't think we have a problem if that goes back into any salary that needs to be made up by state parks for our share. So I don't know where that stands as far as your salary goes, but something to think about.
I appreciate that, Bill. Let's throw that into that budget conversation, and then we'll kind of work our way from what we need to what's still there, and then how fungible is that, and what, where do we want that to go? Because that could be our first $30,000 investment into Jon-Paul's backbone financing too. So that's good information to have.
Yep.
So Jennifer and Mike, are you guys gonna take some planning?
You bet. We can talk a little bit, although I think Dennis took 75% of my talking points and at least 50% of Mike's. So we'll save about 10 minutes.
Oh, good. You're going to save us time and catch us up.
Exactly. Well, Dennis talked a little bit about the process. I think a couple of things that I'll add is the folks, we've talked to you a little bit about the folks that we convened for the river and canyon segment plan review committee. There's not even a good acronym for it, but it really, I think Mike and I've talked a little bit about this. It has come to fruition in the way that we had hoped. It's been a really diverse group, really broad perspectives, both in terms of accessibility, usability, the interests that they bring to the table, as well as the geography. So we have quite a few folks from the coastal side of the project and a number of folks from the valley or metro side of the project. And so I think that has really, it's helped inform the review of the alternatives. I think Dennis mentioned that the river segment alternatives was the last meeting that we had. And one of the things that I really appreciate about parametrics, and some of you have been involved in the projects that they've done up until this point, but they have a web mapping tool that really allows committee members to participate in providing feedback outside of just the Zoom meetings. It's a place where folks can really get into a granular level along that long stretch. They can view comments, provide comments, and actively engage in between meetings. And then the meeting that's coming up, I think not next week, but the following week, we'll dig into those canyon segment alternatives. And then I'm not sure if Dennis mentioned this, but we'll also be looking at preferred trailhead sites and doing a little bit of that prioritization with the committee as well, continuing to move us towards that draft reporting towards the end of the year. So Mike, I think you had a couple of things to add as well. And otherwise, it's been a great project and great participation.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. I'm less of a process person and more of a, what is the feedback we're getting, the tone maybe, if I could sort of my side of the equation for the committee. It's been interesting to have them on Zoom, right? So it's a lot of people that are maybe not used to being on Zoom, like those of us in agency land where we're doing a lot of meetings this way. I think they're getting more comfortable with it and more comfortable in their roles. And so we're starting to get more feedback. I think we'll get quite a bit more. Some of the sort of themes that are coming out, maybe, one was around the feel of the trail and wanting to make sure it retains our sort of coastal view of the world and natural resource, ecosystem friendly green trail, not sort of the more industrial concrete, concern about keeping the trees when we can and some of those things. I'm getting more, some of it's been informal, like phone calls to me, but so rail and trail, trying a little bit of confusion around the scenic railroad and how far up it might go or might not go, and why and where and how and different costs. And I think we're going to get some feedback as we go through this around, it's time to make some decisions around that so that we don't spend money that has to be taken back if that role changes or those locations change. So they're from the outside, they've not been a part of the project, and they're seeing some of those discussions around the scenic railroad and the rail and trail, or rail, instead of anyway. So that's been something that's kind of starting to come out a little bit. And let's see, I think I had one more, but I think they appreciate being able to provide input. They're all just thrilled to be a part of the project, and it just shows the draw of the project, and they want to do more. And so I think we had that with the other review committees too, that when it's over with, they're sort of left saying, we want to keep helping. We want to push it forward faster, in many other cases anyway. So,
Mike, I think that's a really great point, that I'm not sure that we are always intentional when we're building these advisory committees or other subcommittees to this work, that we really are building trail partners at the same time. And so the diversity is not only important for the committee work itself, but also the opportunity to really build diverse partnerships for the future of the trail development.
So it's been good. I think I appreciate the work that Dennis has put into it and parametrics, and I think it'll get us to the right product at the end.
Excellent. And thank you both for all of your work and leadership on that as well. Are there any questions for Mike and Jennifer on that? You guys just really want to talk about budget. We probably should have put this at the beginning. Awesome. Okay, so let's go into a budget conversation. And Dennis, I'll need a little bit of help because I don't have all the numbers right in front of me, but we had kind of two different things going on. So originally we had kind of the salary for the project manager, which has been Dennis. Prior to that, it was Rocky Houston. So we've been doing this for a really long time, but the salary portion was split between ODF, OPRD, Tillamook County, and Washington County Visitors Association. And I think we were at about 20,000 a piece was the last contribution, Dennis, is that right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so that's where we were in order to keep Dennis in that project manager role going. And then separately, we had like a $3,000 contribution from, I think, those same players to cover things like insurance and legal and any administrative things that might have come up. So those two pieces have been kind of in play. Dennis, am I missing anything?
Yeah, I believe Grand Ron contributed that as well. We had a total contribution in 2019 of $18,000. That was STIA's basically operating budget.
Okay. And so it was the same 4 plus Grand Ron on the 3,000.
Correct. It was basically the agencies that were represented on the board. And at this point, we're at about $2,000 remaining in that budget. We don't anticipate any needs through the end of the year, and that 2,000 would then get us our insurance coverage for 2021.
Okay, so that's the admin side. On the personnel side, where are we there? Do you know what the remaining amount is?
I don't. I believe for 2020, as of COVID, I believe the only funds we were looking at from my position was coming from the funds that Tillamook County had added to the planning grant. So I believe OPRD's been potentially billing STF for my salary periodically, or perhaps the transfer of funds had already taken place.
And I think that's true. I think I actually signed something here recently with one of those transfers. So, okay. So why don't we start with the easier one, which is well, and I don't know, maybe they're not easy. Maybe they need to be collective, but so we're at this place of we need to figure out we obviously still need that project manager capacity and that planning capacity, whether it's on the STIA side or that resides now within the foundation. And so we do need to figure out how we're going to fund that. I mean, yes, maybe there's some Murdoch funding that comes in, but I don't think that we can rely on that. I think that we need something a little more solvent to make sure we're carried through regardless. And so, and I know we're all in these weird budget conversations and people may not be able to commit today, but I do think that we would be looking at about the same amount. We would need about 20,000 from four entities to be able to cover the salary costs and some of the project stuff that would need to be there. So maybe that's a conversation you're going to need to take back, and we'll need to figure out how to solidify the commitments around that. And then the administrative side, we probably would need sounds like about 2,000, but it would be nice to have at least another 3,000 in reserve in the event that we need legal review over things like an operation and maintenance agreement or anything else that could be coming. If we actually start making some advancement on some of these projects, we will need some legal review in there to make sure that that's covered. And maybe that's an ask we come back to and say, hey, is there somebody on the board that's willing to help pick that up as they arrive? It just seems like a clunky way to do it, but that is also an option. So I don't want to put anybody on the spot. I know you probably weren't prepared today to pony up money or write a check or commit to anything, but I do want to at least have a conversation here about the interest level or thoughts around whether or not you think that's even going to be feasible, so we can think about what other ways we need to fund this if we are not going to rely on the way that we've been doing this. So I'm going to open that up to anybody else who wants to jump in. I guess Washington County Visitors Association, Tillamook County, ODF, you guys probably want to jump in first. Is that something you guys are still interested in committing to, or do you need more information? Do you need more time? And no's an answer. We just need to kind of know where we're heading here so we can plan appropriately.
This is Bill from Tillamook County. I'm not going to have the clout I had before where I could kind of strong arm things through. But our transient lodging tax dollars are actually holding pretty sound. I mean, we were swamped as soon as we opened things back up. So I think we're going to be quite a bit ahead of Washington County Visitors Association with our funding. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking we'll probably be right where we were last year with the funding, which we got about $4 million. We've also heard loud and clear from the community that they don't want us to advertise and promote. They want us to build trails. So I would think Tillamook County would be amenable to that request, but I can't guarantee it. I just can't guarantee it because I won't be here. And even if I was here, I couldn't guarantee it. But I surely can work behind the scenes on that one.
No, and I think that's probably more helpful, Bill, even just having the level of interest and commitment, not necessarily the dollar amount, but whether that's even a feasible conversation. And I heard you guys by September 1st were already at last year's numbers, so kudos.
People were ready, and they're spending 2 weeks here rather than just a few days because they can do all the kids' homework from here. So they're just loading it up, and it's amazing.
Yeah, that's fantastic as long as everybody stays healthy. Okay, so Carolyn, I know you're in a different situation. So what are your thoughts?
Yes, we are in a different situation, and it's great to hear the coast is doing well. Our transient lodging tax revenues are pacing at about 50% below what they were last year at this time. So certainly our funding doesn't look as beautiful as Bill's funding. So I can only speak, actually I can't even speak to what commitment we can make financially. I still need a better, clearer understanding besides what I'm writing down as to what STIA is asking for, and then what STF is asking for. We are probably going to be okay being able to continue that $3,000 a year level of support. But whether or not the Washington County Visitors Association can continue with an additional $20,000 for position support, or even less than that. I can't speak to that right now. I've got a board meeting in 2 weeks, so it'd be great if I can get information from both STIA, where we're sitting right now, as well as from STF, clearly on where some funding is going to come. But I wouldn't count on WCVA in the year coming. Like I said, okay. 3,000 would be okay, but I'm going to have a hard time standing up and advocating for tens of thousands of dollars moving into this next fiscal. Just there's just too many people out of work here, and the recovery road is just very, very heavy right now.
No, and totally understand. And just appreciate the candidness so we kind of know where we're heading. So,
okay.
Thank you, Carolyn.
And again, the caveat with the 3K, that's what I'm thinking could be an easy sell. But as you all know, I've been a big advocate for this project, so I'll do my best under the circumstances.
No, and you have. And so it's not lost upon us that you're in a spot now that it's different, and everybody totally understands and respects that and still appreciates everything that you've done. And I know that you're still going to continue to do so.
Yes.
Money doesn't translate to passion here. We'll figure it out.
Carolyn, your thoughts about the extra money that's sitting in the planning budget that may not be?
Well, at this moment in time, I want to stick with what our policy was, Dennis, when we funded the Valley segment. And that was any unspent funds for that particular project were to be reverted back to the organization. So that might be where we'll stand in a recommendation, but that doesn't mean that 30,000 can't be part of then the discussion I've got with the board is to, okay, we underspent this contract, and if you split it between us and Tillamook, we would have unspent it by 15. Our share of 15. And then that'll give my board an opportunity to take a look at that $15,000 and say, okay, how do we want to apply it? And I'll give them some options on what they can do with it. For example, those additional dollars going towards the STIA needs, or some of those additional dollars being transferred and going towards the STF needs.
Or that may be towards that project. The Banks-Benoni Connection project might be a good place to move that.
And again, it's when we gave those dollars in January of last year, we knew there was something called COVID in Beijing and Shanghai. We just didn't know it would result in what we're looking at today. That's all.
Yeah, I think for at least for the part of the STF, I think the value in us trying to put together this 3-year plan is that while it's not articulated very well, and it's a good point, Carolyn, at the moment, and we do have to have greater, I think, coordination between STIA and STF relative to the ask, sort of the combined ask really for the likes of partners assembled here. The benefit of having the 3-year plan is that we can kind of put an eye on when we might feel confident in a return to promotion of destinations and new destinations, and when we might conceive that TLT funds might be replenished in the Valley, for example. And so, you know, while we would love to see a grid with, you know, every square for every quarter in all 3 years kind of filled up, really it has to be a phased approach for the STF, where our focus on tourism destination building is sort of a slower burn and a longer term investment strategy. And really any funding that we could reliably count on, you know, from Washington County would probably need to push to year 2 or 3 in that plan rather than right up front, because the timing just doesn't make sense. So that's partly why I think Jon-Paul was trying to illustrate all the different lines in the water that we're seeing, looking to get some sort of alignment on philosophy for pursuit of those different ideas. And I think that's maybe perhaps the first endorsement we're looking for is, are we headed down the right path? Is the federal infrastructure programs like, you know, the Great America Outdoors Act or the Invest in America Act, and some of these things are kind of stalled or moving or not moving, but there's certainly some opportunities there. So we want to square with our partners where they see interest and value in some of those things, and then we could kind of shift the timing for your investment in pursuit of those according to your ability and what we foresee the climate would sustain.
And WCVA has become a really big supporter financially, because while we had the Washington County government folks embracing the project, they weren't as passionate about the project as Jerry Willie is now. So what I'm hoping is you're going to see the emergence of Washington County, Diami and Commissioner Willie, becoming a stronger voice and funder as we move forward on the project. At least Diami, that's my hope. All right.
Right. Yeah. So excellent point. And so maybe reaffirming what I was saying about starting with infrastructure and support within these municipalities and counties and cities, and then perhaps a transition toward bringing in tourism as well, only when it makes sense. So, you know, we're fishing where the fishing is good right now, and then, you know, with a phased approach, I think we can do very well.
Nope, we're going to have to be pretty agile here. So, Mike, and just from an OPRD perspective, I mean, we were hit really hard. We lost about 22 million. We didn't return 371 seasonals. We laid off 47 full-time staff. But the revenues on the lottery side, people continued to gamble and lose. So our revenues are slowly recovering. So I'm going to stay committed to the project. I don't want to lose momentum from the agency perspective. So I'm going to do whatever I can to keep money moving in this direction, unless COVID or God knows whatever the heck next is coming at us impacts us differently. We're going to stay at the table here financially. So Mike, I'll punt that over to you and see what your thoughts are. Hopefully you and Peter had time to talk.
Just a little bit. I remember I can't believe it's been 2 years already, but I think we got together in Banks, a number of folks that are here on this phone call, and kind of hashed through how much money we needed and then how to come up with that. And I'm a little bit, it's hard to, nice to have the numbers clear for what do we need for next biennium on both the STF side and the STIA side to help us have a target. I think that would be helpful. So maybe, I don't know if Jon-Paul and Dennis could kind of put that together to say, you know, what are we looking for for STIA for Dennis's position for the biennium, and then also then I think Jon-Paul, I understand what you've got there with the backbone funding, but I think put that into like a one pager so we could all think about that internally. As you know, I think our programs too, Lisa, have had our struggles. We still want to be committed. I think we have committed at some relatively low level, but maybe it's enough if we all, you know, do a stone soup approach here. It'd just be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, for the position, we're at about 80,000 for the biennium. Keeping Dennis at a half-time position is the target that we were shooting towards with the 4 entities at 20,000. It doesn't need to be the 4 entities, but 80,000 is the target. And then on the admin side, I don't even know that it's 3,000. It would be nice to have, if we have 2,000 in there, it'd be nice to probably have 3,000 more. So the ask on the administrative side is 3,000. So that way we would have a total of 5 sitting there needing the 2,000 to handle the insurance, but there'd be some kind of buffer there to hold us through. So I don't know if you need a one pager, but the numbers on that are pretty simple for me anyway. It's 80,000 and 3,000.
No, and that's very helpful. So yeah, I think forestry will probably be into, I think the 20,000 level is kind of what Peter thought we'd probably be able to commit. So we'll have a small piece of that, and if that plus state parks and what Tillamook County, I mean, we may be able to get there, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think we're not too far off, so.
It was helpful to have kind of everybody working on that at one time in the same room. I think Jennifer Purcell, you were there. I remember did a nice job of helping us through that. I wonder if we ought to have a phone call focused just on that, you know.
Yeah, and I think that would be helpful because I think there is starting to be some crossover and integration, because I think some of the stuff Jon-Paul is referring to is that project management planning piece. And I think that could end up merging together. And so that would be super helpful if we could just have a budget conversation with those numbers. And it was kind of fun because Jennifer kept plugging them in for us and adding them up, and and that way we can really back into what the 2 entities are really looking for and need, and we're real clear on where those roles and responsibilities lie for those funding sources. So Dennis and Jennifer, do you want to help me put that together?
Yeah, happy to.
Sure. Okay. Is there any of the other STIA board members that think that they have an interest in being able to financially help out in either of those categories?
I'll commit to talking with the Port Board about contributing to administrative funding.
Okay, thanks, Jack.
I don't see Commissioner Willie on the call anymore.
He left you hanging.
Yeah, so I can't speak to it. Certainly, I'll make sure to reconvene with the commissioner and note that this is a top priority to discuss. I can imagine the administrative commitment will be fairly straightforward in terms of the additional funding. I really see it, and as I noted, as we were talking about the specific project, it is going to be kind of project specific, and it will be easier for us to, I think the county can certainly commit to being, the fiscal agent for, if funds are awarded, and then obviously passing those dollars through, and with STF taking some administrative and project management role, then there's a clear path there, I think, to funding, whether that's the challenge obviously is getting us to that point. That's probably a year out before any of that funding becomes available. So
yeah, and I think we're going to get closer and closer to that. Project-based funding is going to be more appealing to probably all of us. So I guess what I'll ask here is, Jon-Paul and Dennis, if you guys can take your 2 budget requests together and combine them, so that way we know what is STIA and what is STF, and what is the actual financial commitment. And then if you guys, along with Jennifer, want to help me get a call together maybe in the next week or so, because the end of the year is coming up, I mean, I think we have enough commitment that we can carry on for a couple months and we'll figure it out, but it'd be nice to get that resolved. So if you guys can help me with that, and Jon-Paul and Dennis, if you guys can kind of create one budget there and we know where and what we're funding and who we're funding.
Happy to. Great. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate the conversation. In the
Lisa,
spirit of time, yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
Just quick question. Who is in the lead for scheduling that meeting? I'm happy to follow up, but I just.
We'll take it on our end.
Okay.
I'll work with Dennis.
I'll follow up with Dennis. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
We'll have Denise do it on our side once we know who's going to be in the meeting.
Okay.
Okay. And in the spirit of time, I want to make sure we stick to the agenda. We actually have the opportunity for public comment, and I'm going to have to move to Jon-Paul and Dennis to help me with this because I have no idea how we do that, or if we have anybody.
This is easy. No public comment was submitted.
Oh, okay. All right.
So we're done. That piece.
Okay. All right. At some point we'll get to that being a little more robust, I think, but I love that we could have had it. So with that, we do have 10 minutes. Is there anything anybody wants to cover or anything anybody needs from any of us?
I was going to talk about meeting schedule for 2021.
What?
Our next meeting actually isn't until 2021. So
okay.
If we continue along the same quarterly idea that we did this past year, our next meeting would be February 5th. And then it would be May 7th, August 6th, and November 5th.
Everybody's scrambling to look at your calendars. Is that okay? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Yes? Look at you, Commissioner Bartline. He'll have plenty of time. We'll have public comment once he retires.
Be careful what you wish for.
I can't wait. Awesome. Okay, well, I guess in the spirit of time and giving it back to you, I just want to say thank you. Great meeting, great conversation. I look forward to getting the budget piece resolved. And Bill, this really isn't going to be your last meeting, is it?
I don't think so. I don't think you're going to get rid of me this easy.
Okay, because I don't want to miss the opportunity, if it is, for everybody to have an opportunity to roast you or be really nice to you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll make you come back either way, at least for one, in the event that it is your last.
Yeah, and I have talked to the county about making me the alternate here. So
Okay.
I think Erin Scar will probably take over, but if she can't make a meeting, I'll be there, and I may attend all the meetings anyway as her alternate, just to keep up to breast.
Okay, it would be hard for us to have you not sitting there.
You're going to have to stuff me and put in the chair eventually.
If that's what it takes. Okay, anybody else have anything else you need from any of us?
Just one last request on my part that, if it's not maybe clear in your head yet how STF can add value to your organization or agency, I'd love to talk with you more about it and explore that. And if you have something in mind that we didn't quite hit on with the approach we articulated today, then I'd love to hear that. We are all about seeing how we can most benefit you all and others as well.
Yeah, and as a quick second to that, if I can, I think also giving some sort of feedback on the lines in the water that we've described that we see as funding sources. Just some feedback from you guys as to what you think are the best bets, the most likely places that look like would excite your constituents, your neighborhoods, your communities, your boards. and your stakeholders as it relates to trails in our region. You know, I think Jon-Paul articulated and put on the presentation several of those, but maybe we can add that as kind of a footnote to the piece that we'll work out with Dennis's help, just to kind of show, you know, if you're helping us put those bets on the table, kind of where they go and a sense of timing on them as well.
Great, thank you. I think as we get a little bit more confident in where we're heading, I just appreciate that you guys are picking up momentum as we're all trying to figure out how to recover. So it's kind of like the perfect storm where you guys are ready to launch while we're all trying to figure out how to get our legs back under us. So I think we've got a great opportunity here. So you heard a little bit today about where we are. That'll help you better understand where you might want to be thinking and navigating towards. So
yeah,
we got this.
Yeah, and I think the engine behind a lot of this is just the feeling, I think, in the public about getting outdoors and what the use of personal time and what does being active look like, and what does family time look like, and what is enough space for our constituents and our public. So I mean, I think there's a ton of really positive energy that's come out of a really negative situation that should inspire this group, and that's certainly what keeps me going. And I think you know, there are funds behind those that inspiration as well. So I think it's up to us to listen for those voices and pursue those sources of funding where we find them, and show generosity of our effort, not just, you know, Jon-Paul described it hat in hand, you know, like, oh, we want to build this trail, but really getting inside what the trail means to the specific segments, the specific communities, and even our neighboring trails, like we've been talking with banks and so forth. So that's really where we see the excitement, the promise, and the financial opportunity, frankly. So help us vet those ideas.
And I think, personally, I think there's a huge opportunity in the private philanthropy.
Yep.
Foundations, but private donations. I think we'll know a lot from this year-end appeal. The response to it.
See what kind of response you get.
Yeah, the feedback we've gotten from the trust is, and the donations that we've gotten this fall as a result of the fires and the pandemic, and the increased use of state forest lands has been really, really positive. People want. So I think that's really, I've been working a lot, talking with Jon-Paul about developing that arm of the foundation, and really, I mean, that's what the Murdoch grant is in part to do, to enable the foundation to really build on that. And getting a good database is a really strong part of that. So that takes capacity to do, as we found out.
Awesome. Okay, well, I thank you all, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day and a fantastic weekend. All right.
Thanks for
Thanks,
sharing.
you guys. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.